Cloud. Oh, thank you. All right, so this is a fireside chat tonight with District Governor Frank. Next slide, please, Dave. Okay, so what our goals and objectives are tonight is to increase members' knowledge and understanding about RI, identify potential areas that you might want to get involved in, mentoring opportunities. One of the things that we have not done a good job of over the years is when we bring new people in, we don't really let them know what opportunities are there. So part of this tonight will be to identify those things, see where you like to go. And we also want to know where the sponsors of new members should be spending more time with the new members as well and answering their questions and so on. And an informal opportunity to get individual questions. Now, I did see something flashed here that Keith McConkey raised his hand. Do you have a question, Keith?
No, I was just following the instructions to raise a hand that were good with the recording, but of course I'm on an iPhone and the tech gap was there.
Okay, that's great, thanks. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Governor Frank, I believe, with the next slide. And then Frank, you talk Dave through at your pace. Okay, over to Frank.
Thank you. Okay, next slide. Okay, thank you. So I'm your district governor for another 6 days or thereabouts, and then I'm a has-been. But I just want to thank Dave and the PI committee to help to put this together so we could do it this way. And the picture of this guy here is Holger Kanak, and Holger hails from Germany, and he is our Rotary International for the next few days. Certainly, membership is very important to any club. It helps to bring in new perspectives, new experiences. And we have done very well this year as a club as far as membership. I think we're at 6 new members right now, which is more than I think we've ever had in the past. Next, Dave. So something that the presidents get to do is they get to determine what the theme for their presidency is going to be. And so this is past, present, and future. So a year ago, it was Rotary Connects the World. And this year, Holger's theme has been Rotary Opens Opportunities. And the person that's coming on board as our president in a few days hails from India. His name is Shekhar Mehta, and his theme is Serve to Change Lives. Next slide. So we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of between 35,000 to 36,000 clubs in the world, covering pretty much every continent except for Antarctica. There's over 1.2 million members. On that point, if I showed you this slide 10 years ago, it would have said 1.2 million members. We lose about 100,000 a year. We gain about 100,000 a year. Shekhar has decided that by the time his year is over, he would like to see 100,000 new members. So see that number jump to 1.3. If every club did what our club has done over the past year, we would far surpass that number. It's not so much adding members. The fact is we also lose members. So we are all volunteers. This is a social agency. And across all of these clubs and 530 districts around the world, last year we did about 16 million volunteer hours, which is pretty phenomenal. Polio has not been in most of the world for a long time. Back in 1953, when I was around 4, polio just scared the crap out of everybody. Every parent that had a kid was afraid they were going to end up with polio. And the reality is that we were seeing around 350,000 new cases of polio every year, or 1,000. Rotary's been working on this for quite a long time now. Basically, we started off with the Philippines in 1979. and over 3 years, basically immunized every child in the Philippines, and then made a decision, let's just take this on as a worldwide project and try to get rid of it. So we'll talk a bit more about this in a bit, but we've been working really hard to do this. Next, Dave. So history of Rotary goes back to 1905. You've probably heard of this gentleman by the name of Paul Harris, who was a lawyer in the city of Chicago. And the office building that he was in had 3 other gentlemen. One was an engineer, one sold coal, because houses were heated by coal back then. And I forget what the other guy did, but at any rate, these are the 4. And so Paul called for a meeting with these guys, and the idea was that they could share resources, they could share names of clients, they could try to help each other grow their business. And so that's where we all started. It wasn't set up as a social service agency at all. It was set up to actually help these guys in business. And if you're wondering where the name Rotary comes from, the decision was made to, instead of having the meetings in one office, that they would rotate every week, and they would have a lunch meeting in a different office. And so that's how we became known as Rotary. Next. So 23rd of February 1905. And over time, Rotary's reach and vision gradually extended to humanitarian service. It was basically about a year after these guys started meeting and it started to expand that someone suggested that, well, maybe, you know, we're business professionals, we're pretty well off. There's probably some need in the city that we could do something with. And there weren't very many, if any, public latrines at that point in time, public restrooms. And so the first one was built on Michigan Avenue with money raised by the Rotary Club. And water and sanitation is one of our areas of focus. So it started way back in 1905. And then another thing that happened was a physician that had a horse and buggy to make house calls. His horse died. And so they purchased a horse so this doctor could continue to make house calls. And disease prevention, health promotion, maternal and child care is another area of focus. So that started way back then. And as Paul said back then, whatever Rotary may mean to us, to the world, it will be known by the results it achieves. And we have achieved an awful lot over the last 117 years or so. Next. So I mentioned a bit about polio. It's interesting, in 1967, when I was 18, my mother was working at the Kitchener-Waterloo Hospital as an x-ray technician. And she helped me find a summer job, and that was working at the hospital as what was called a medical attendant, which was essentially a glorified orderly. And in the orderly room, in the storage at the back, was one of these. It was basically silver and looked just like this. And I remember saying to one of the attendants, you know, what is that? And he said, oh, it's an iron lung. And I said, okay, what's an iron lung? And they said, basically, it was a precursor to modern ventilators. And kids in particular were put in these because they had lost the respiratory muscles and could no longer breathe. And so if they weren't in an iron lung, they'd be dead. And then it also crippled a lot of kids. So as I said, 79, we started off. And then in 1985, the decision was made to let's try to eradicate this around the world. It was endemic in 125 countries at that point in time. We're now down to 2, that being Afghanistan and Pakistan. So India with a population of 1.4 billion, Africa with a population of over 1 billion. People thought we would never eradicate it in a place like India. And it's been eradicated there for a decade and a half now. And so we're down to 2 countries. And amazingly, over the last this year, since January, there's only been 2 new cases, one in Afghanistan and one in Pakistan. And that's despite the fact we haven't been able to get in to immunize because of COVID. So that's the good news. The not so good news is that a country has to be declared polio-free for 4 years before the World Health Organization will actually declare them polio-free. So once we completely wipe it out in those 2 countries, we still got another 4 years to go. And we still continue to immunize, and we have spent something like $2 billion with the B dollars to date on immunizing children against polio, but it's been very, very successful. Next slide. So Rotary has a vision statement. This is fairly new, came out about a year ago. Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. So we like to think that we are people of action. We just don't go for a breakfast meeting once a week and socialize. There's things that we're out doing in the community, and there'll be more talk about that in a bit. So the object of Rotary is to foster the ideal of service as a basis of worthy enterprise, and to foster first the development of acquaintance as an opportunity for service. So that's what we do as a club, to have high ethical standards in our business life and professions, the recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations, no matter what that may be, and the dignifying of each Rotarian's occupation as an opportunity to serve society. As I said, this started off as a businessman's club, and it was restricted to men. And basically, when you went to meetings, it was primarily dinner or luncheon meetings, and you wore a suit and a tie, and so on and so forth. So that has changed somewhat over the last number of years. The application of the idea of service in each Rotarian's personal, business, and community life, not just as a Rotarian. And finally, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a road of fellowship of business and professional persons united in the ideal of service. Next. So Rotary is organized at a club level, at a district level, at a zone level, and at an international level to carry out its program of service. So as an individual, you are not a member of Rotary International. The club is a member of Rotary International, and you're members of the club. The president of the club is a member of Rotary International, and the governors and assistant governors as well. And then, of course, directors on the board of Rotary International, which there are 17, the president and the president-elect. So each club elects its own officers and enjoys considerable autonomy within the framework of the standard constitution and the constitution and the bylaws of Rotary International. There are no such thing as Rotary police. Basically, clubs have quite a broad spectrum of areas that they may be interested in, or how they meet, so on and so forth. Okay. So I had the pleasure of reciting the 4-way test tonight. This started with Rotary in 1932. A businessman by the name of Taylor was hired to take over a business that was failing, that was almost bankrupt, and certainly did not have high ethical standards. And so for that business, he came up with this 4-way test of what we think, say, and do, and basically informed all of the employees that he expected them to act as employees with this in mind and turn this business around. So he became a Rotarian and introduced this to Rotary. And as I said, it's been around since 1932. And most clubs do recite this at the beginning of every, and Rotaract clubs for that matter, at the beginning of their meetings, just to remind us of this is Rotary, basically. Next. So we have areas of focus. Now, for a long time, we've had 6 areas of focus. Promoting peace. We have a program where we basically pay to educate at a master's level 100 students a year. They go through a vetting process and basically are approved by Rotary International. And basically, it's a 2-year master's program, and everything is paid for them. So this is how we help to promote peace. Interestingly enough, when the United Nations was formed in 1946, something like 17 of the delegates there were Rotarians representing Rotary. And to this day at Rotary headquarters in New York City, Rotary maintains the presence of an office. And it's been told to me by many people that have been there that if you're wearing a Rotary pin, everybody from every country in the world that belongs to the United Nations will recognize what that pin is. And there is a Rotary Day at United Nations in the fall of the year, usually in September every year. So fighting disease is another big thing that we do across countries and continents, providing clean water, sanitation, and hygiene. You would not believe how many people die every year in this world because of a lack of potable water, because of horrible sanitation, no sanitation, and hygiene issues. Saving mothers and children, supporting education, growing local economies. In third world countries, Rotary will sponsor people to start up businesses with microloans, and these are usually pretty unsubstantial if you're in Canada. I was to Honduras twice with my Rotary Club, and had a chance of seeing some of these. One of them was a lady, and her mother and her daughter lived on the boundary of a high school, and it was 12 miles from town. And every once in a while, these kids would have to photocopy an assignment, which meant they had to walk 12 miles or ride a bike 12 miles to just maybe get a single piece of paper copied. And so she thought, geez, if I could buy a copier, the kids could just come here and get the copy, and I can make a little bit of money. So for $750, which is a lot of money for a copier nowadays, she was able to purchase a copier through Rotary. And she turned that into a little store where she's now selling scrapbooks and paper and pens and pencils and so on and so forth, and supporting her mother and her daughter via this. So that's one way that we can support local economies. And the one that's coming into play in 6 days' time, brand new, protecting the environment. And there'll be a fair focus on that. So for these, you can get either a district grant or a global grant. We'll talk about those in a bit, to help support projects like these, both locally and around the world. Next. Rotary fellowships. There's a zillion fellowships. Basically, these international groups, basically, it normally costs around $100 for a life membership to a fellowship. I belong to the Brew Fellowship. So that's a beer tasting fellowship. There's a gin fellowship. There's a Scotch Lovers Fellowship. You'd think we're all alcoholics, we're not. There's fellowships for scuba divers, RVers, marathon runners, and so on and so forth. So it's easy to join one of these. There's over 100 of them. And these are all Rotarians that have a passion for something, and they usually meet at the international conference once a year. And since they're all over the world, they've been meeting via Zoom format for a long time. So there's some neat stuff there, and this is how you can get to that site to see what they are. Next. As with any organization, we have lots of acronyms, way too many acronyms. This is a small number of them, but RI stands for Rotary International, so that's our parent body, if you will. DG is district governor. So there's 530 of those around the world, supporting around 50 to 60 clubs in each district. We also have assistant governors. So in 70-90, we have today 16 assistant governors that support the district governor and the district, and they meet on a regular basis with the president-elects of the club. It's expected that they meet about 3 to 4 times a year, and that they actually attend about 3 or 4 meetings a year as well. So in our area, Area 7, David Alexander, who happens to be in Welland, is the assistant governor, and he has responsibility for that club, for our club, for Dunville, and for an E-club called Sony, which is Southern Ontario and New York, which is truly a virtual club. So the Rotary Foundation is not an appendage of Rotary International. It is Rotary International. This is our fundraising arm. So I mentioned those areas of focus and the fact that we can, as a club, support both district grants, where the club is given $2,000 and matches that $2,000, and that's for money that goes into the Rotary Foundation, and also global grants, and these can be as much as $300,000 for very significant programs or projects around the world. RLI, so Annie Hoopy would be with us tonight, but she's actually finishing her final stages of something called Rotary Leadership Institute. So this is a Rotary school taught by Rotarians to Rotarians. Until this year, it's always been done in person, and we would switch it off between two sides of the border. So we would meet at the Niagara Community College in Sanborn for one, and then we meet at Niagara College for another. They're now doing it Zoom, and it's worked so well this year. We've had such an uptake of people taking this program that we're going to continue that as Zoom. It used to cost around $70 to go, American, which the club would pick up for members. We've got that down to $20 now, which the club will still pick up. And I would highly recommend not just new members, but any member of Rotary to take RLI. I am a member of the faculty. I've stepped back this year as governor, but we'll be stepping back in for the next classes, which will be in September. So pleased to give you more information on that if you're looking for it. Club leadership training or a club assembly. We just held this a few weeks ago. And basically, this is something that the district puts on a yearly basis. And it really is to give the presidents, the treasurers, the secretaries, and anyone else some training on what their role is for the year that they're assuming those positions. And that takes me to PETS, or President-elect Training Seminar. So that's 3 to 4 to 5 sessions. Again, we used to do these by Zoom, and then we would do it in person. And of course, last year in my year and Ann's year this year, we're unable to do that. So we did it as Zoom, and it worked out really, really well. We had a lot of great feedback. I think we had about 22 different topics that you could sign up for any 2 of those. RILA, Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. So this is a program that's been around for a long time, sanctioned by RI. RILA basically is for college, university level students, so around 18 to 30 years of age. It's a 1-week program, normally at the community college in Fredonia, New York. And again, it's just a youth leadership for up and coming possible Rotarians. So again, we weren't able to do that this year. Slapshot is a program that's specific to our district only. This isn't done anywhere else in the world. It is RILA, but for high school students. And basically, we send an Interact student from E.L. Crosley every year we sponsor. And then normally one other student that we hope will come back and join the Interact Club at the high school. And RILA, a lot of those come back and form or join Rotaract clubs. And we as a club co-sponsor with 3 other clubs, the Rotaract Club of Niagara. It's a community club. And basically that was started by 6 Rilarians coming back that really were enthused and wanted to get involved in Rotary, but couldn't afford $300 to join a club. And so we got a club formed for them. Slapshot is held at a conservation area in Dundas. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's a blast. It's an outdoor adventure student leadership program. Rotary Community Corps, not many of these around in our district, but basically this could be an environmental group, some sort of friends of the environment, and basically Rotary may take them under their wing and help them out and help them with projects or help raise money for them, that sort of thing. So they usually focus to an area. Yeah, okay. VTT, vocational training teams. So basically this is something we've been doing for some time. Again, not the last 2 years because of COVID, but basically we'll send 4 or 5 people that are expert in an area to usually a third world country. And basically there was one on agriculture that was in Australia a year ago. And then they came over here. We had a team over in Thailand. They were to come here this year, but they couldn't. And again, this is a district program and funded by the district. Okay, next. So some Mythbusters about Rotary. Rotary is for men. Well, it definitely was until about 1987 or thereabouts, when the Supreme Court in the United States ruled that Rotary must admit females into their ranks. And that came with a fair bit of angst. It's interesting local history. Hugh Graham's wife, Sandy, was the first female Rotarian to be inducted in the Welland Rotary Club. And at that time, those meetings were a Tuesday noon meeting at the Welland Club, which was certainly a male bastion. And Mel's father actually brought, who is a banker as well, brought her to a meeting and informed the membership that he was going to sponsor her as a new member. And there was a lot of hackles, a lot of backs up, a lot of people, a lot of men that felt that they're going to destroy Rotary and we shouldn't be doing this. Well, within a year, we had 3 females in Welland. And the guys realized pretty quickly that, boy, if you want to get something done, ask a female to do it. The guys might have great ideas, but often not really great follow through. So basically, that's how things got going here. And this club, which was formed in 1991, actually the very first president was a female, and a good number of the club members, founding members, were female as well. So never been much an issue for us here, and it certainly isn't worldwide. We probably have about 20% of members are female, around 30% in North America. There are countries, though, like South Korea and some others that are basically still very male dominated. It's for retired people. We had a district governor, you'll see a picture of her later on, Melissa Schrock. Her shtick was that Rotary has been male, pale, and stale. And she was going to turn the world upside down. And she did a pretty good job of that. And so it's not just for retired people. It's not just for males. Anybody that's 18 or older can become a member of Rotary. Again, there are many professionals involved with Rotary, but you certainly do not have to be Rotarian. Again, back when I joined the Welland Club in 1991, I can tell you that anybody that was at that meeting was an owner or a very senior manager of a company in Welland at the time. That has really changed quite a bit. And back in the day, and we have Rotarians, including one that I talked to yesterday, that was proud to report to his club that he's had 30 years of perfect attendance. And so basically what Rotary was a meal. And basically that was either breakfast, lunch, or supper. And if you missed a meal, you were expected to make that up by either attending a committee meeting, a board meeting, or going to another Rotary club. And it really was more about meeting than it was about engagement. And so we've thrown all that out the window about 3 years ago. That's all been changed. And really clubs can do what they want to do in regards to meeting, how they meet, where they meet, so on and so forth. And we have some club models now that are only meeting twice a month. One of those meetings may be planning for a project. And the other thing is actually going out and doing that and actually not having any sit down meals whatsoever. So we've got a few of those those are called satellite clubs. And we're in the process right now in this district of forming about 6 satellite clubs. It's not a religious organization. It's not a secret society. As I said, you normally had to be dressed for these meetings. Well, you have to be dressed, but not overdressed. And again, it's no longer a lunch and dinner club. Rotarians are famous for being able to write checks, but not actually getting their hands dirty. So certainly there's been a lot of changes in that regard as well. Anybody can ask to be a Rotarian to join Rotary. Most are invited by people that are Rotarians, that know what Rotary is all about, that know this person and feel that they would be a good member, and may ask them to come out for a meeting just to see what it's all about, and then think about maybe joining. Though we do big international projects, each club is able to do what we call district grants and smaller projects, and that's what most clubs do. Next, Dave. What slide am I on, Dave?
You've just got a few photos and stuff to go through about the district, Frank.
Okay, all right, thanks. We are the very first binational district to be formed by Rotary International back in around 1909. So Rotary started in Chicago. It spread fairly slowly in the United States. The first Canadian club was Winnipeg. And then from Winnipeg, it went to Hamilton, Hamilton to Brantford, Brantford to Welland. So Welland's just had their 101st anniversary. St. Catharines has had their 100th anniversary this year. Niagara Falls their 100th. So a lot of clubs coming into being around 100 years ago. And so we are a binational district. Just the next slide, I go show some pictures. So we're called Best of Friends. And we have today 66 clubs, but as of next Wednesday, we will have 65 clubs. So we're merging 2 clubs in Hamilton, Stony Creek and Hamilton East Wentworth, 2 fairly small clubs, East Wentworth down to 7 members, probably ready to fold, having trouble attracting members, and so decided to join up with another club. So 65 clubs, 1,960 members as of July the 1st last year. We're probably going to end up with something like around 1930 on July the 1st of this year. Unfortunately, traditionally, we have lost on average around 100 members a year across the district. So if you go back 16 years ago, we had over 3,000 members. And we've also lost about 14 clubs in that time frame. So again, as I said, we have 1.2 million members worldwide, and that hasn't changed, but we have lost in North America in particular, and in Europe, and in the British Isles and Ireland. We're losing more members than we're gaining. So the fact that we're adding 5 or 6 members this year was one of my challenges to the clubs, that every club had net 4 new members per club. Had we done that, we would be around 250. Having lost about 50 or so, we'd have a net gain. So anyway, Shaker wants to do 100,000 new. So membership's important, and we've lost about 30 members this year to death, including 2 past district governors. And so those people haven't walked away from Rotary, but they're no longer here to be with Rotary. So we have to increase members as we go along. Next. Yeah, so this is a map of our area. So basically, it's Western New York State. So basically, almost Rochester is in another district, but you'll see beside that it says Hawley, and below that Leroy and Batavia. So that's sort of the eastern part of our district, and it goes right from Lake Ontario all the way down to the Pennsylvania border, and then it covers over to Pennsylvania at Lake Erie, Westville, Mayfield, Dunkirk, Fredonia. And then on our side, it's all of Niagara, which we have 12 clubs in the Niagara region. And then it covers down to Delhi, Norfolk, and Simcoe. A cluster of clubs around Brantford, and then a cluster of clubs around Hamilton. So that's your 60, what will be 65 clubs. It says we have 14 Rotaract clubs. We did have at one point, we're sitting at 10 clubs right now, and happy to say 10 pretty active clubs, including ours, which we sort of resurrected over the past year. And something new, I mentioned we have 16 assistant governors to support the governor. And that is going to 18 as of July 1st, because we're now going to have an assistant governor for 5 Rotary clubs on the American side and an assistant governor for 5 on our side. And then there's a Rotary coordinator, and that person will also be on district council, which is basically not our governing body, but our operating body at the district. And right now, yeah, we're sitting at around 1,940 members. 530 districts around the world, 34 zones. So we're in zone 28 and 32. And just to give you some appreciation for the size of that, that includes all of Alaska. It includes all of Canada, some of the northern states, including our district, as I've just pointed out here. Another one is 740, which is interesting. It covers basically Kingston all the way up to Montreal, all the way up past Ottawa and down into the very eastern portion of the United States and into one of our territories. So it's a really interesting district. We also cover off the French islands of Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, which are just south of Newfoundland. We cover all of New York City and Bermuda. So basically we are in a very international zone. So British, French, Canadian, and American. Next. So there are district committees, and our club is way overrepresented, which is a really good thing at districts. There are clubs that have no involvement with district whatsoever, no district officers. Obviously, I'm a district officer as your governor for a few more days. I'm still on as immediate past district governor. They never let governors go. They've always got jobs for us, and I've got about 3 lined up already in my year as immediate past district governor. Angela Carter has been our district membership director for the last year and a half. Unfortunately, due to work commitments and other commitments, she'll be stepping down. I mentioned Melissa Schrock, a past district governor. She's actually jumping into that role, and she's going to be very good at it as well. Mel Groom, who's with us tonight, has been on the district finance committee for a couple of years. She's also been on the nominating committee, which nominates your district governor and vice governor. And she will be chair of that in a year's time. Thank you, Mel. Dave Schultz has been awesome in his involvement with the public image committee. And he will be stepping up in 5 days, 6 days time to be the chair of public image. So we're very glad that he's come forward. We're going to be involved in there. And Mike Taylor is, everything youth is Mike Taylor. So Mike has been involved with Youth Exchange for a long time. And there's a separate board for Youth Exchange. He's on there, and he's also on the Youth Exchange or the Youth Services Committee as well, and going to be next year as well. So our committees are basically membership, public image, the foundation. So we have a foundation committee who are always trying to find dollars for the foundation. But this group also determines which groups are going to get, or clubs are going to get district grants or global grants. We have a service project committee. I'm going to sit on that this year. So that's trying to get clubs to work together in partnership. And so something we were able to do in my year that I wanted to do was the Great Lakes watershed cleanup, where we could get multiple clubs involved on a single project. And unfortunately, with COVID, it threw a bit of a monkey wrench in. On our side of the border, we had a lot of activity in the American side, and we're still doing stuff over here right now. And I mentioned youth services, finance, nominations, and then strategic planning. So strategic planning, and Birmingham and Melissa Schrock have been taking care of that and co-chairing that over the past year, with Ann coming into governorship and Melissa taking over for membership. I will be co-chairing strategic planning with someone by the name of Bob Morrill from the Dundas Valley Sunrise Club. Bob has been the coordinator for assistant governors for the last 3 years and has done a phenomenal job. So as you can see, nobody really gets away from Rotary unless you die. Okay, carrying on to the next, and I think I'm pretty much done.
Just a few pictures to
Yeah,
quickly go
Yeah,
through,
I mentioned
Frank.
Melissa Schrock a few times. This is actually at the district conference that she held, which was in Canada, even though she's American. It was in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and we had a Pints for Polio fundraiser the night before at Ulster Brewery, which is owned by the son of a Rotarian in Niagara-on-the-Lake. So we're able to support him and raise some money for polio. And I mentioned the Brew Fellowship as well. So she's a past district governor, and she was my vice chair. The vice chair row is they get to do absolutely nothing for their year unless something awful happens to the district governor, and then they're saddled with the job immediately overnight. They have to take over. So they all hope and pray that we stay healthy and they don't have to do that. But certainly they've had the training, they know what it's all about, so they could do that role. Next. I followed Bob Artis. So Bob Artis was from the Clarence Club. So his title for 5 more days is immediate past district governor, and then he just becomes past district governor. And I become immediate past district governor. And there are roles for us. And basically the district governors try to meet once a year as a group and in a mentorship role for the district governor chain. I should mention on district governors is that, so Ann is governor next year. We already know who the governor is going to be after that. It's Lisa Bishop, and she's from the Delhi Club. And we know who's going to follow her, and that's Scott Marson, and he's from, finally we got an American back because it's 3 Canadians in a row. He's from, where is he from? Amherst South Club. So he'll be taking over. And in December, we'll be nominating a person to become the district governor nominee designate is the title. And that whole group of people meet on a regular basis every 2 weeks so that we're all in sync with what's going on. Okay, thank you. Boy, Judy had a real easy year. She didn't have to go anywhere. She got to stay home and babysit our son, Finley. And I'm riding off into the sunset on Dave's tricycle. Actually, I'm not. Web Talks is something that our district does. So once a month, basically starting in the fall, we have Zoom meetings, and we bring in notables such as Mark Maloney here, who's president of Rotary International a year ago, and have all kinds of interesting topics. And these are done through the district. The zone also does the same thing. Okay. Mentioned media training. So Al Lutchen is the person that's chairing that right now. And as I said, Dave will be taking over. And I mentioned the pedal for polio, which we managed to pull off on 2 sides of the border despite COVID. This was almost impossible, but we actually made it happen. And we actually raised $70,000 for polio through that ride, which is being focused in the Rotary magazine in October of this year. They're actually doing an article on us and that.
That's great. And this was really your last one, Frank. You already mentioned Dave, you can just go back one, that we are in area 7 and the other clubs that are with us, and just some pictures that represent the different clubs. And that brings us to Fonthill. So thank you very much, Frank. That went very well. And I know you had to talk for about 40 minutes there. So maybe we have to look at, if you do this for another club or the next governors do Fireside Chats, we may want to streamline their portion a little bit. So I'm going to turn it over to Ann now to talk about Fonthill.
Sure. Thanks, Hugh. And hi, everybody. I'm Ann Harrison. I'm the incoming president-elect for the Rotary Club of Fonthill. And I'm going to chat with you a little bit about our club, but I'm going to be really honest when I say I've actually only been a member for 5 years. So there's lots of people on this call who have a greater sense of the history of this club. And so if I err, these mistakes are mine, not because of the PowerPoint presentation. So anybody can jump in and correct me. Dave, moving on. Just really quickly, Frank mentioned our club was chartered in 1991, in fact, in June of 1991. So we are hitting our 30th anniversary. And it's really exciting to say that Gail Levy's, I believe it's June 11th, 1991 was when she became a member. So Gail is one of our charter members, still an active member. I know many of you who are new perhaps have not seen the face of Gail because she has been phoning in as opposed to using Zoom. But you can also meet her over at her gas station on Highway 20. And she's been a fantastic mentor of the club. Currently, our club has 36 regular members and there are 6 honorary members. And so through Zoom, you'll know that there are some people that you see fairly regularly because their timing and our timing align, and others that show up maybe from time to time, or perhaps you only see them at the events. Also, same thing happens. My hope as when I become president in a few days, that obviously will start as a virtual club still, but the hope is that we'll transition to our regular face-to-face meetings, because I think that's a huge part of what we do, is that camaraderie, that being able to gather together, have a breakfast together, chat for a little bit before the club meeting starts. But we'll see when we can get to do that. And you'll probably find that there are some members that will show up at the breakfast meetings that perhaps you haven't seen their name in these virtual meetings. We know there's been a few people that virtually are zoomed out and simply can't add another Zoom meeting to their agenda. And likewise, there'll be some new people that will come into the club breakfast from time to time. Certainly, I know that when I started as a member, I was working full-time at that point. So there were times I couldn't attend the breakfast meetings. And I'm just articulating that to remind people of what Frank said, that the whole idea that you must attend every single meeting is something that has changed. We also look to have a lot of the different leaders like to have pod leaders who are in charge of a month's worth of activities, like to have some service events interspersed with our meetings. So we are small. We're considered one of the smaller medium-sized clubs. But I think you'll find that, and you've probably already found, that we have a significant impact in the Pelham community. And I think we're really proud of the work we do here in Pelham. We are the Rotary Club of Fonthill. That's our title, but we work with all of Pelham. So Dave, next slide. We do have a board of directors, and shortly, as Hugh said, we'll be confirming who that board is next Wednesday and affirming who those individuals are. We do have several different areas. They're a little bit different from this as well, and we're still massaging this. This is, I'm going to be really honest, an area, and Hugh very kindly has said that one of his goals as past president is to help me in articulating some of our committees a little bit more clearly. But we essentially have club administration, membership, public image, service projects, both locally and internationally, Rotary Foundation. And you'll see youth service. We actually have on our board youth directors for youth. So all of this structure is something that over our years, over my years that I've been part of the club, some things have kind of fallen by the wayside. Some things have been more active. So we want to work to articulate this a little bit more. And one of the things that's part of our strategic plan, which I'll get into in a few minutes, is we would like every member to have a good sense of where they fit in this committee structure. So what we'll be doing over the course of the next short period of time is clarifying this committee structure and subcommittee structure and helping each of you understand where you would fit in. So which kind of subcommittee you might want to be part of. Paul Snack is on, for example, he's part of the fundraising subcommittee. And I know he's looking for new people to help him out to brainstorm and think about different things that can be happening from a fundraising perspective. We need some people to think about budgeting. We've got a fairly active youth committee, but always looking for new people to help with that. Annie's been doing the Rotary Foundation for a long time. And I just want to articulate too that we have these committees that seem very large, but we also have individual events that happen. And so sometimes an event happens and somebody might be a committee of one. We'd really like to change that. So as an example, Lance has been heading up Canada Day since we started doing Canada Day, which I think was in about 2005. And it would be awesome to get more people involved in supporting him. John Cappe was brand new and headed up our summer, what was it, the big band? I'm not even sure what it was called anymore, John, my apologies. But last summer when we did our virtual food and band event. And so we'd like to see a little bit more involvement from all members so that we can have that connection. Next slide, please. So we have, and I think many of you were involved, hopefully. We had a meeting probably about a month, 2 months ago, where we looked at our strategic plan. We do have 4 pillars in our strategic plan. We had a strategic plan in place for 2019, 2021, and we took a deep dive into it in breakout rooms some time ago to look at it again. And I know that everybody's been sending, everybody except me actually, has been sending to Hugh our notes from those meetings. And I've got mine all typed up, ready to go, Hugh, any day now, any second now. But in the children and youth category, that's one of our focus areas. I think it's one of the areas that you'll see that we do a fantastic job here locally. We have a number of different clubs, and they're words that perhaps have been tossed out there, and I want to make sure you understand what they are. We have Early Act. So Early Act is the Rotary version of a club at an elementary school. So currently, we have a group of youth, missing currently a staff advisor, but Troy Killick supports an Early Act at AK WIG, but we would love to get an Early Act club, a group of elementary students interested in doing the work of Rotary in one of our other elementary schools that are in Pelham, and there are a number that are in Pelham. We have always been really strong, and Mike Taylor, just kudos to him and the work he's done. We've participated in youth exchanges for many, many years. They are on hold currently, but once that gets back up and running, we do have an outbound. So that would be a student from E.L. Crosley mostly, heading out, sponsored by Rotary. It's not always from E.L. Crosley, but it often is. Heading out to another country, and then we have a student come in and spend the year with our community. So we look for 3 to 4 host families, and that's a great opportunity to host. And you don't have to have children the same age as the youth, just have to be willing to host a youth. And they typically would attend Crosley and live in your home for a few months. We regularly sponsor 2 Slapshot candidates. Frank identified what Slapshot was. This year we did have 2 people from Crosley participate in Slapshot. It was a virtual event. One of them was strongly involved in Interact. One was just getting interested in Interact, and both of them said that the virtual week of camp was fantastic. We normally, as Frank said, have a RILA person, so that's for our slightly older youth. Interact, so I mentioned Early Act. We have an Interact club. It's at E.L. Crosley. So Early Act, again, that's your Rotary for elementary age students. Interact is the Rotary Club for secondary age students. And then Rotaract Club is for students who are either at college or university or young professionals in the community under the age of 30, just so you know what those names represent. We partner with Crosley with vocational training. The other children and youth event we've had in the past, a Fun Fest. That was at Bissell's. We ran 1 or 2, Paul Snack, just raise your fingers. I think we did 2, right? 2 Fun Fests or 1 Fun Fest? We obviously didn't run that last spring, and we've done 2 in the past, and we'll continue to look at opportunities for that perhaps next spring. And we would love to plan more events, at least 1 event with youth and Rotary together. One of the things we did this year was our Rotary Club of Fonthill supported Crosley's food drive, and their Christmas cheer food drive. And we went, they collected the food at the school. We came to the school, collected it and brought it. It was the best we could do given the circumstances, but we'll do other events. There was also the Rotary Great Lakes Watershed Cleanup this past Saturday. So opportunities for the clubs to get together. Next slide, please, Dave. We do like to make sure that we're leaders in our community. We like to make sure that our community, the Pelham community, understands what Rotary is doing. So local community, showing up at local events, highlighting them. In this is saying be a part of the community welcome wagon. That was something that was coming into play a couple of years ago. It has fallen apart. So that's one of the areas we'll revise. We have also often talked about there are a number of service clubs within the Pelham community, and it would be great to have a service club convention. Internationally, we've always been involved in the End Polio Now program. We have been part of disaster relief initiatives. One of my goals would be to continue to assist Indigenous communities and work with our Indigenous and our understanding of the Indigenous issues locally. And we participate in some of the local and international cluster grants so that we look at applying for grants where other clubs also apply for grants, so that this is not something that we're fundraising for, it's grant applications that we're putting forward to support different initiatives. Next slide, please, Dave. Growing a sustainable club is another portion of our strategic plan. We always are looking to attract some new and potential members. So if anybody knows somebody they think would be interested, with a net increase of 2 members annually, Hugh has gone through the roof this year. Huge shoes for me to fill to try to increase membership next year. I did try to convince Dave if, maybe some members we could say started July 1st instead of June 30th so they could count in my year, but it's not a competition, Hugh, and it doesn't matter.
Yes, but we also lost a few, so the net is not as significant
There's a
as it
net.
might look.
Yeah. We also like to develop and maintain a succession plan, because while the club it's a great team and it's not about one person, there's a huge number of individuals who make up this fantastic team. It is good to have a succession plan. We have in the past had membership recruitment, wine and cheese type events. Those are great opportunities. I want to just talk about pods because this information is coming out each month, and I'm not sure if this is on another slide. I don't think it is actually. Each month we have a group of people and pod leaders. So the pod leader and Mel has sent out to pod leaders. Paul Allen, for example, who's on, he's hiding incognito here, is Jennifer Allen. He's one of our pod leaders. John Kappa is one of our pod leaders. They're responsible for a couple of months of it. Bob is one of our pod leaders. Who am I missing? Carolyn. So a pod leader has a group of Rotarians. They're responsible for a particular month. So they plan out the activities that are happening that month, who the guest speakers are, whether there's going to be a what's called a classification talk, which is where we get to find out more about one of our members, or mini classification talk, where we just do a little bit about one of our members. But they prepare and distribute what the agenda is for that month and share it with Dave so he can put it out on our calendar so everybody knows. We also, from a Growing Sustainable Club, we do really like to include family members. So as often as possible, we like to have a family-focused event so that we can bring people together, get to know not just the members, but their family members as well. We like to, as I said, partner with the Early Act, Interact, and Rotaract. Dave has done, just kudos, fantastic job of maintaining the website and Club Runner. But it's really important that pod leaders share information with him so that he can post it in a timely fashion. It's also really important that if you're responsible for participating in an event, we always try to remember to take photos at that event so that we can share them with Dave and post them on the websites, but also that we need people to write up little news releases, because we can send this out to the Voice of Pelham or the other news media and so on and so forth. But if you're leading an event or working on an event, and one of the things you might want to do is say, I'm really good at writing a little news release and I can send it out because, again, many hands make light, light work. Our strategic plan talks about supporting, maintaining all of the avenues of service. So we're going to adapt that, add in that 6th avenue. And we do look at member diversity. We're trying to get a variety of members involved, a variety of demographics, people to be involved in the club. So I'm just touching on some of this. I know you can read the slides. I'm not going through all of that, but that's all part of our growing a sustainable club. Next slide, please. Another main quadrant for our strategic plan is that we want everybody to be engaged and to be having fun. And so a big piece of our club, yes, we're learning, yes, we're serving, yes, we're doing all of that, but we also want this to be an enjoyable experience, which is one of the reasons we like to have these family events. We like to include the whole family involved. We are looking to make sure that new members are involved in committees, so they're engaged, they're connected, they know what's going on. I'm just going to do a shout out and say, considering being part of the board, being part of committees, taking leadership roles on events, it's the way you learn what's happening and you get to know people. So if you see these opportunities, it may seem as if there's one person running it and you're maybe asking yourself, how do I step up and get involved? Reach out to that individual, reach out to me during my year and just say, listen, I'd like to get more involved. This is my interest. We can connect you with the people and make sure that you're helping out with those things. We also do, in other times, have social events and meet at various different locations as much as we can. So opportunities, we've often had dinners, Christmas or seasonal dinners, or meeting up for a drink on a patio or something along those lines, all of which has not been something that we've been able to do, but I'm really excited that Hugh's looking for an event at the end of July, because I'd said to the pod leaders when I sent some things out to them that I think it's going to be really important that we try to, as we transition back into being able to meet, that we do get a chance to physically be in the same space as often and as safely as possible and as the COVID restrictions allow. Because I think it's important. I think many of us now only know each other, from the shoulders up. And the story I'll just share is I've been running a leadership workshop since January, meeting with a group of people every other Friday. And one of the people didn't show this past Friday because she'd had a baby, and I had no idea, absolutely no idea that she was even expecting. And then it turned out 3 other people on the leadership call also were expecting, but because we'd only seen each other from January from their shoulders up. So we're really getting to know people is what's important. Next slide, please. Hugh, is this mine or yours?
No, it was, could have been moved. It's just that there are resources available to us
Right,
as
for
a club
strategic
to
planning.
do strategic planning. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, and we've had some great help from individuals leading our strategic plan conversations. And I think each of you were part and parcel of conversations with regards to that when we did our review. So that was the previous strategic plan. We'll update it and share it out with you as well. And these are some great resources as well. If strategic planning is your thing, then please reach out and we can have you work on that as well. Right. Next slide, please, Dave. Fundraising is a piece of our puzzle because I think you've probably seen, even just from the emails that Hugh has shared, that the community looks to us for support for the various different events. And we certainly, that's one of the things we want to do, is support the various different things that are in need in our community. And so our reality is that we're often looking for ways to raise some funds so that we can meet the needs of our community when they come asking. We have made a commitment that we'll look at, instead of, because these offers come in regularly, we are going to start looking at them only twice a year, letting them know that, we'll hold it and look at it at 2 times a year so that we can not do a first come, first serve, but a more integrated approach to distributing funds to those in need in our community. But these are just some of the things that have happened. We do a TV auction in the fall. It actually starts usually in August, early September. where as members, we start to reach out to people that we're connected with in the community and ask for donations of things that can get auctioned off. It's usually the first weekend of December. And thanks, Crystal. Crystal has to run, so thank you so much for being part of it. So that's something to keep in mind, that we do have to do these asks, and the TV auction is a fairly large event for planning and running. It runs very smoothly because the people who do it are pros at it, but they're always looking for support. Family Fun Fest, as I said, is something we have done in the past. Again, it's been put on hold for a little bit. Purse Bingo was, we ran our first one in November, I think, of 2019, and had the second one planned for, I think it was April 3rd of 2020. And I still remember the conversation of, should we hold it? Shouldn't we hold it? And then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, it's not happening. But it was a great social event. We had the Tour de Lac, the bike ride around the lake. Mud Fest was the predecessor to Family Fun Fest. And we've done Pedal for Polio. And so there's lots of opportunities for fundraising as well. And of course, we did the little Max Sold auction and raised some money through that. So that we're always looking at opportunities for fundraising and looking at ways to raise money. Because as I say, lots of organizations in our community come to us for support, and we'd like to help them out. But fundraising isn't the be all and end all of what we're doing, but it is a piece of our puzzle. Next slide, Dave. I think I'm moving on to Hugh.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Anne. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, there we go. That's good, Dave. I'll take over now. And I'll try and go through this fairly quickly. I know we're coming near the end. We are going to be keeping you a few minutes past 8:30, but not very many. So the Rotary Foundation is to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding. Now, this is separate from the fundraising that we do for our own community projects and or international projects. This is, and I'll talk more about it as we go through it. It's a not-for-profit corporation. It's supported solely by voluntary contributions. We donate to the foundation, and it's going to come up on one of the other slides. I'm going to stop talking until Dave gives me another slide, and then I'll get back into the gear here. So one of the things that the foundation does, the money that we donate to the foundation and through the district, part of it comes back to the district so that it can be providing matching funds for projects that we might want to initiate as a club. So for example, for Pelham Cares, there was a fridge freezer. For St. John's Ambulance, some defibrillators, laptops for Rose City. A COVID grant was for tablets for seniors to be able to be in communication with their families when their families couldn't go to the centers to be with them. The Kiva grant with Interact, we're right now working on one for desks and chairs for women's place, for school work or women that have work that needs to be done when they're in the shelter. We just recently, you may have seen the pictures, donated a horse-drawn lawnmower to the iCanter therapy group out near Fort Erie, and four of us were out there to see that in action just last weekend, I believe it was, or the weekend before. Time flies when you're having fun. So the way this works, we would pick a project. For example, the most recent one that was actually funded was the horse-drawn lawnmower. The India Rotary COVID one, I'll talk about separately in a minute. But for the horse-drawn lawnmower, we decided that we wanted to do a community project and apply for matching funds from the district. So we actually, at that point, went out, we're going to go out to the community and ask for ideas. Where would you like to see something? And our own Dave Schultz talked to us about the iCanter group and the need for a horse-drawn lawnmower, which we didn't even know there was such a thing at the time. But anyway, we pursued that. Our club put up basically, and my numbers might be a little bit off, so those who are on, don't try and correct me right now. I think I'm in the ballpark. We put up $2,500 and we went to the district for $2,500. And that project was approved. So some of the funds that 3 years ago we donated through the district came back to the district, and we got a portion of it to help fund this thing. So the lawnmower costs $5,000, and it has to be paid for before the district gives you the matching funds. So we just recently, a couple weeks ago, received back $2,500 from the district, which we had already decided we would turn around and put forward for the Women's Place project. And now we've applied for matching funds for that. And I think that's been approved as well. I think Mel's on here somewhere. And so that will move ahead, and that funding can take place, and that project will work. So that's a very quick overview of how district matching funds works. There was also one where we got a donation from our corporate member, Penn Financial, who were supporting the Socks for Change project, I think it was called. We kicked in some money as well. We funneled that through Rotary, got a district matching grant. So the Penn Financial donation got doubled, and we were able to do double the more bang for the buck, so to speak, by doing that. Okay, next slide, please. Some of the capital projects that we have funded as a club without matching grants from the district: the permanent home for Pelham Cares, Wellspring Niagara, Isaac Rule Skate Park, the E.L. Crosley Marching Band. That was the biggest one we ever did back in the centennial year of Rotary, which was 2005. The challenge was to all clubs to do a huge centennial project. So we set the goal of raising $100,000 for the E.L. Crosley Marching Band for new uniforms and new instruments for the band. At that point, their uniforms were 25 years old and had been repaired many times. And the club itself, I believe we only actually came up with $5,000 or maybe $10,000 in that year. But through matching things, through a Trillium grant, which our club put together, lots of work by our treasurer, Randy Momot, we were able to get $50,000 out of community and club donations and $50,000 from Trillium Foundation. And we were able to equip the band and get new uniforms and so on. So if you ever see the E.L. Crosley Marching Band in performance anywhere, you will note that on the banner that the majorettes or the marching people at the front carry is our logo. And also on the big bass drum is the Rotary Club of Fonthill logo. And then the benches for Peace Park, the town arches, a project which we'll be revisiting in the near future. The entrance sign at the town down by Gale's gas station, if you ever noticed that. We were instrumental in the setting up of the band shell in Peace Park. The Meridian Community Center, we have a children's library in that area, which some of the newer members may not have seen or may not have realized since we haven't been at the Meridian Center for a while. And the Tour du Lac that Anne mentioned as a fundraiser. Let's go on to the next one. You know what? Anne covered the pods already. I think that slide, I may not have got Dave to change everything the way I thought I was.
Yeah, sorry, it was out of order and I realized.
No, that's cool. So annual dues are $300 Canadian. We pay it we invoice bi-yearly. You can pay it all at once if you want to. And how that breaks out is $100 US or 124 of your $300 goes to the annual fund. That gives our club a sustaining member award. That's a tax receivable thing, which you get a tax receipt for. And then we also become a sustaining member club every Rotarian every year. That's a $25 US dollar donation as well, with a per capita average of $100. These dollars support the district on global grants. That's what I talked about a few minutes ago, how those dollars that we're giving to the district and RI come back to us 3 years down the road, or come back to the district. And if our projects are approved, then we get to we get to fund more projects. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there because Dave's chat box popped up. And then $176 is divided equally between RI, District 7090, and Club Administration. And I just want to quickly, because I don't think it comes up in the slide again, talk about the cluster grant that Ann mentioned. So what happens there, say there was a project that we wanted to, that we were interested in, but it costs like $10,000. That would be our buy-in, if you will. We formed something a few years ago in our district, but not district wide at this point, just some of the clubs in Niagara, where we all had large projects, but we didn't have large budgets. So we said, we're going to do a cluster grant, which means that each of the clubs involved is willing to offer $1,000 towards a project. Now, we may have one to present. The first year we presented a project for a library in Africa. It wasn't the one that was selected, but the way it works is by consensus, one project is chosen and the whole $10,000 goes to that project. So the clubs agree that when you sign an agreement to be in the cluster grant process, that you will support whichever one's chosen. You may not even be pitching one that year. And we haven't the last 2 years, but we have supported it with $1,000. So the next slide, please, Dave. So your dues, that $300 goes to the foundation, as we already mentioned, Rotary International, and through the district dues, and the club gets $88 of it. Now, there's an important distinction that I don't think we cover off often enough. That $88 to the club, that is for club costs, administration, and stuff like that. For example, the new member kits that we just ordered, they're paid for out of that. Breakfast, extra costs, for example, if we were doing if we were a sponsor night at the band shell and we wanted to buy water and give that out to the public, that would come out of that kind of money. Our fundraising money is only to be used for the projects that we do. We can't use fundraising money to pay club costs. And I think that's an important distinction that we don't say often enough. So when we talk about supporting like $500 for the Butterfly Project or something like that, that comes out of money that's been raised by funds or by fundraising events, that tree that Ann talked about at the end of her part of the presentation. So we have to really make sure we keep that in mind and that we don't overspend. And that's why we need to get a better handle on budgeting and where the stuff's going. And as Ann said, we're going to start reviewing all the requests twice a year instead of as they come in, and get a better handle on how we're actually spending our money. And then we can tie the fundraising to the outgo for those kind of projects in a better manner. Okay, enough said about that. Let's go ahead. Youth programs, that slide, Ann's already talked about all of those as well. So that's really it in a nutshell for foundation and stuff. I'm going to give Dave a couple minutes to talk about his photos and how he has really, really engaged our club in social media and awareness to the community in the past couple of years. So Dave, over to you for a few minutes, please.
Okay, so I'm going to show you some slides that just show you some photos of events and things that the club has been doing. The important thing here is that we want to be able to tell our community what we are doing in the community. We want to engage people for more than one reason. One of the reasons is we do want to attract people to be members, but we also want to engage people in wanting to be involved in other ways, such as financial ways to help support projects. Rotary has had a history of kind of flying under the radar, not doing a lot of work to let the public know what we're about. We tend to do things kind of behind the scenes, and we're changing that because we believe that we can do more by raising public awareness of what it is that we do. So that's one of the reasons why we've really stepped up, focus on when we are out in the community, we collect photos so that we can share them on our social media, share them on our website, And when we engage in a project, we will also publish a story on the website. So really encourage you to check that out on a regular basis, as well as there are links there to our social media. And that's really what this is all about. So just to show you some photos that we collected for this presentation. I'll just scroll through them. And without talking about each and every one of them, you can see people here that you recognize. And one of the things that I'm really impressed with is the number of things that we've been able to do over the past year in the whole, with all of the restrictions and the problems, that were brought about by the pandemic. I think we've had a record year in terms of things that we've done in the community. So here we are with a few more photos. And that's it.
Sorry. Yes, great. Thank you very much, Dave. And Dave has done, as I said, a fantastic job of sharing that out there. The other thing that I just want to point out is that we also use our social media avenues for promoting community events. They don't necessarily have to be Rotary related. For example, we did have a request to support ear surgery for a young boy in the community, which is not something that our Rotary Club normally would be involved in. We don't do a lot of stuff on a personal basis that way, but I asked Dave about it and we threw it out to the community website right away, or the community viewing on our Facebook and so on, and got a lot of traction for that project. So we're able to help in ways through media that we may not be actually supplying funding and stuff for. So thank you to Dave. And I want to ask Bob from his experience in the years of Rotary, just to share a little bit about his thoughts and ideas about what Rotary means to him. So Bob, over to you.
Well, I see we're a little past due, but I'll try to summarize my 30 plus years of Rotary over the next hour or so for you. Keep it under. Yes, I am a Rotarian for 30 plus years, 10 years in Fonthill. I've been a member of 5 different clubs, having transferred around. And I wasn't really a joiner in particular early on in my life. So, but what I found from Rotary is I've got a lot more out of Rotary than I've put into it, is as we moved from one community to another, Rotary introduced us. They would send letters to the next community that we're going to. And inevitably, the clubs would call and say, you're invited to lunch or you're invited to breakfast, whatever. I always stayed with the breakfast clubs because I found that lunch clubs and dinner clubs have a tendency to go on for quite a while. Breakfast clubs at 8:30, it's over, you're going, okay? And that was part of the requirement of my job. They also provided us with I used to call it open source intelligence, is a good dentist to find out where to go, restaurants, where to fish, all those types of things. It was a great introduction to the community, and immediately you had friends that you could rely on. And when you're going to a new community 500 miles away, whatever that comes to in kilometers, it's kind of nice to have that connection. Okay. Rotary provides, as you've heard of all the activities that we get involved in. As you get involved with it, it provides you with an opportunity to learn how to manage volunteers and to manage projects. And this was really helpful for me in my professional development as well, to be able to make those mistakes in fun things that we were doing, or to learn from it, okay? And everybody in the club there's your professional experiences and so on, the main part of your life, but everybody has multiple experiences that they bring to all of these projects. And it's a great way to learn from each other, and in a very friendly, fun way, okay? I'm already at item 4 out of 7, so we're doing well, okay? Number 5, okay, is I want to mention this is, and I've got the packages ready for everybody that's a new member, is the Rotary pin. Okay.
That's good.
I'm a great advocate of wearing this pin. It's the most recognized pin in the world. Okay. And I was in Haiti doing some work. I happened to have my pin on, and I couldn't believe in this godforsaken, poor community, an individual who didn't have anything recognized the Rotary pin for work that Rotarians had done in their community. Also, I have to tell you, I was at a convention in Edmonton after I'd retired, working for another company. And I'll be careful with this. I was standing at the urinal, and the guy next to me looked over and said, "You're a Rotarian." And he extended his hand. Okay. Now the question was, do I shake his hand or not? But in the interest of friendship, I did. Okay. Anyways, the other part that I want to put forward is you've heard of lots of projects that we take part in, all kinds of things. And this can be overwhelming, is you don't need to participate in all of this, okay? And I remember at one time I was thinking, well, I'm not a very good Rotarian because I'm not doing everything that is going on. And the first thing you have to do is look after yourself and look after your families and make sure that you have that balance so that it stays part of the family and the family has fun with it as well, okay? And the last part is a new idea I came up with when Frank was reciting the four-way test, okay? We host the mayor's debate on every 3 years or 4 years, okay? And I suggest that next year, the next debate, we're going to run it on the basis of the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? It'll be friends, whatever in the hell the other two are, okay? Because I think that will really cut down on the debate, okay? We'll have scorecards for all the people in the audience to score them on each one of those. You have to have fun. That's the main thing with Rotary. And I've had fun for 30 some odd years. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bob. And that was very well said. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us. That was great. I would just like to add on that, wearing the Rotary pin. I'm guilty of not wearing mine all the time. I don't even have it on tonight. I do try and wear it when I'm out at most times. My daughter, Amy, some of you know her. She helped a lot with the Rotary TV auction last year, doing our social media for that. She was on and she, as Frank mentioned, Sandy's been in Rotary for 30 some years and I've been 20 some. So our kids know what Rotary is all about. And Amy was on a subway in Toronto and saw that the gentleman across from her was wearing a Rotary pin and said, "Oh, you're a Rotarian." And he was visiting from Montreal. He was at a convention in Toronto at the time. And then he answered in French, which he was surprised to find that my daughter is bilingual. And so then she had a conversation in French, but she explained what her Rotary background was. So that pin, as Bob said, is very, very important and is recognized worldwide, sometimes by only Rotary family members, but it is recognized worldwide. So I just want to close on the note about fun and family. It is so important to me that at our social on July 28th, I want to see all of you, your spouses, your significant others, your kids. I just want to have that big family fun event in the park, and we'll just have a really good time and be able to see each other in person. That'll be so good. So on that note, thank you to the ones who spoke tonight. Thanks for the preparation, Dave. Thanks to those, I extend my thanks to the district for that put the deck together for a fireside chat. I think this worked actually quite well. It's about 15 minutes longer than I wanted it to be, but it's 15 minutes shorter than Frank said it would be. So.
Hey, Hugh, could I just say something here? Do you mind if I say something here?
Not at all, John.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if anybody has questions.
Yes, go for it.
Well, first of all, guys, I'll be honest, didn't feel like an hour and 45 minutes. You know, a lot of the information, although it wasn't new, it was great to see how everyone presented. So first of all, thank you to everybody who prepared this. I mean, a lot of work went into this and really gave me a great overview. So that's the first thing. Now I have to tell you, and I think I wrote it down, the slide on the Rotary Mythbuster. Okay. I personally have never heard any of those comments. Thank God I never heard those things because, you know, it just kind of, it was very interesting to see that because in my experience the whole time, I never thought of Rotary that way. And it was because of the people that I knew in Rotary, obviously. But to see that up there, I thought that was quite interesting. I had no idea. And again, the last part is you guys are a very inspiring group. You know, for the people that have been here and Rotary for a long time, it's amazing to see what you can do with time and effort and what a difference you can make. And I just want to tell you that everyone on this call is very inspiring on that. And that's it. Just want to say thank you.
Great, thanks, John. Anyone else want to have any comments or questions? No? I would go back to, I know Mel's on here and she's heard this before and Frank mentioned it. So my Rotary involvement is because of Mel's dad. As Frank said, he took Sandy to the Welland Rotary Club. It was part of her mandate as a bank manager to be in a service club. So Ken took her to the Welland Club and they didn't want her and that made her want to be there. But as Frank mentioned, that decision or that ruling that started with the Supreme Court saying that a club, I think it was in California, had to allow women to attend, and then it became across Rotary International. That fractured a lot of clubs, to this day there are people that are no longer Rotarians in Welland because Sandy joined. Some of them are really good friends, but they're not Rotarians anymore. And anyway, I'm glad that none of that myths page was ever heard by John and anybody else that's of a more recent vintage. But because Sandy was in Rotary for so long, and I went with her to Rotary events, that's how I learned about it. And when I was asked 20 some years ago to join, then it was an easy yes to say that I would join Fonthill. And then here we are a few years after that, and it's part of our club. So it really goes around, and Rotary is a family kind of thing as well. So I want to stress that. And the other part is this is a really great group of people in this club. And oh yeah, the other thing that ran through, sorry for talking so long. As Ann mentioned, if there's something you're interested in, that Mudfest wouldn't have happened if Frank didn't have that idea for it. But he came to me because at that time we ran the TV auction, we had a golf tournament, we had these other things going on. And he said, I've got an idea for a fundraiser. What do you think? And do you have a problem? Is it okay if I bring it to the club? Yes, it's okay. We welcome ideas from everybody. So if you got something that you're passionate about, we're in the Mega Rotary TV auction because I was passionate about getting us working with Welland again on a TV auction. And then it became a bigger thing. And now it's whatever, we're at 7 clubs in the area that do it together. But that was my passion and I want our club to do it. So whatever you're interested in, especially you newcomers and you old timers as well, if there's something that we're not doing that you want to see us involved in, just bring it up and we'll be more than happy to take a look at it. So on that note, and having talked, getting us almost to Frank's time limit, is there anything else anyone would like to comment or say as we close, for the good of Rotary, as we say?
Just as a governor for not many more days, and I've been on the circuit big time. I think I have 3 club visits today, and I got another 9 o'clock tonight, actually. Just to say thank you so much, you for your leadership and for your entire team. I've missed a lot of meetings this year. As you know, normally I'm at pretty much every meeting, but if I haven't been there, I've been doing something Rotary related. And this club definitely has got the Rotary citation, hands down. As a matter of fact, as of today, you have more things accomplished than any other club in the district. And you're also in line for the Lighthouse Award. That's going to happen. There's probably maybe 3 or 4 clubs out of 66 that are going to get that. And there is something called the Governor's Trophy. And I cannot decide where that goes, although I can. But we'll see where that ends up. It hasn't been to our club yet, so you're due.
Thank you for that, Frank. I appreciate the kind words. But as I've said before, being president of this club is really not difficult because there's so much talent, so much time, so much effort that everyone is willing to share that it really makes leading these weekly meetings pretty simple. So thank you to all of you. And if there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, stay tuned for a few more flurry of emails this week, and see you all next week for the changeover meeting. Thanks, guys and girls.
Saturday morning.
Good night, everybody.
Yep,
Take
Saturday
care,
morning.
everybody.
Yes, Saturday
Thank you.
morning district changeover.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good night, all. Thank you. Thanks, Al.
Dave, I'll figure out where this recording is and I'll get the link to you and we'll get that out there. Okay, good night.